Okay, well, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, let's call our 2021 January 25th meeting of the Colorado Aeronautical Board. And I think to start with, do we have any amendments to the agenda? I don't believe that we do, but just verify. Director Elaine, do we have anything?
None from staff, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, well, Dave, why don't you introduce, I think we got a nice introduction in our December meeting, but why don't you introduce our three newest, shiny, brand new board members?
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we had Mark Van Tine, Trimby Zabo, and George Merritt join the board effective December 19th, and they were at our December 9th meeting to introduce themselves prior to them assuming their new roles, but they're here today in their brand new capacity. And so I thought I'd take a minute, Mr. Chair, and just have each of them sort of remind everybody who they are and what they're after. So Mark, I'll go ahead and start with you since your picture's there on the left.
Great. Well, it's an honor to be among you and have this opportunity. I'm retired from Boeing and from Jeppesen. I involved in a number of different aviation activities around the state, and I live in a little air park that Bill Payne flies into every once in a while, just 9 miles east of Centennial Airport. So it's an honor to be able to be on the board and be able to serve. Thank you.
Outstanding. Trimby, are
Thanks,
you
Mark.
online?
Yeah, I'm online. Yeah, hi, nice to meet everybody. I'm a GA pilot. I'm a flight instructor. My instrument flight instruction check ride was supposed to be this morning. I was almost going to have to miss this meeting for my flight portion of my CFII, but that was postponed to Thursday. So I also am president of the Women in Aviation Mile High chapter and have been involved in that for about 7 years. I have 4 kids. I'm from Colorado. And that's about it for now.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thanks.
And George, tell us who you are.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm George Merritt. I work for Denver International Airport, where I head up a group called Strategic Operations. I've been there for about 5 years, working on various issues around the state and primarily for the airport. I'm passionate about aviation issues and just really honored to be part of this board. And I'm the dad of twin, about to be 9-year-olds who I'm gonna be reaching out to Trimby about, see if we can get them in an airplane one day. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Okay, well, let's welcome to all 3 board members. This is outstanding. I'm excited to work with you. Mark, I think I don't know if you remember, but I did participate a little bit on when you were the chair of the board for the economic development and DIA in Denver. So it's great to be working with you again. So outstanding. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the board elections. Kathy Young and Pawan Nelson, do you want to facilitate that, or are they online?
Yeah, hi, this is Kathy Young. I'm going to turn it over to Pawan, but I wanted to introduce Pawan to you first. Okay. Pawan Nelson is a new addition to the transportation unit at in the Attorney General's office, and he is going to take over representing the board and the Division of Aeronautics. And I know Leo left big shoes to fill, but Pawan, I think is gonna, I know he's gonna do a great job for you. He's a fairly seasoned attorney. I'll let him introduce himself, but I wanted to just introduce Pawan and make the introduction, and then I'll and Pawan's going to handle the board elections.
Outstanding. So are you passing this along to Pavan and we won't get to see your lovely face, Kathy?
Thanks. Well, I told Pavan I did at best tread water with the board. I didn't, I don't know that I made a, I helped out Dave in the division on a couple of things, but you'll get more consistent representation from Pavan. So yeah, I am going to hand it over.
Outstanding. Well, thank you for filling in.
Yeah, thank you.
And good morning, everyone. Like Kathy said, my name is Pavan Nelson. I'm a new Assistant Attorney General, and I'm very excited to be working with the board and the Division of Aeronautics going forward. And I'm very happy to be here this morning. So it's board election time, and every year the board elects its officers during this meeting, and it's my pleasure to help facilitate it this year. And I'll try to follow the process that Leo did last year. And so we're going to start off going by position. So I'll start off with chairman, then vice chair, then secretary. I'll first read the job description. We'll call for nominations, and then the board will vote on the potential nomination for the position. So let's start off with chairman. The responsibilities of the chairman is to preside over board meetings, to represent and when appropriate, speak for the board, to provide leadership to the board and the division, to call when he deems appropriate special meetings, and pursuant to section 24(6)4023, executive sessions of the board, and to create such committees and subcommittees comprised of members of the board as he deems appropriate. Do we have any nominations for the position of chairman?
One, I'd like to nominate Kenny to fill that position.
Do we have
This
any
is
other?
Kent, I'd second.
Great. Do we have any other nominations? Seeing
Thank you,
none,
sir.
Mr. Mainpa, you've been nominated to fill the position of chairman. Do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Great. So at this point, I'd like to call for a vote approving the nomination of Mr. Mainpa as chairman of the board.
So moved.
All right, shall we vote?
Let's vote.
Okay, so all in favor of the nomination, Mr. Mainpa, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So, Mr. Mainpa, congratulations. You've been nominated, or you've been elected chairman of the board.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
The next position is vice chairman. The responsibility of the vice chairman is to assume the duties and responsibility of the chairman in the event of the chairman's unavailability. Do we have any nominations for vice chairman?
Commissioner Myers, and I nominate Kent Holsinger.
Do we have any other nominations? Seeing none, Mr. Holsinger, you've been nominated as a vice chairman. Are you willing to accept the nomination?
Yes, thank you.
Great. So at this time, I'd like to call for a vote approving the nomination of Mr. Holsinger as vice chairman of the board. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? All right, seeing none, congratulations, Mr. Holsinger. You've been elected as vice chairman of the board.
Thank you very much.
And final position is secretary. The responsibilities of the secretary is to assume the duties and responsibilities of the vice chairman in the event of the vice chairman's unavailability. Do we have any nominations for secretary of the board?
I'd like to nominate Chick Myers for another term.
Do we have any other nominations for secretary? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Myers, you have been nominated to serve as secretary. Are you willing to accept the nomination?
Yes, I am.
Great. So this time I'd like to call for a vote approving the nomination of Mr. Myers as secretary of the board. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Mr. Myers, congratulations. You are now secretary of the board.
Thank you.
So all the officer positions this year have been filled. Congratulations, everyone. So I'd like to close the elections. I don't know if I need a motion for that, but close the elections with a motion.
So moved.
Any seconds?
Second.
Great. Do we need to vote on that? Yes,
what the
okay.
heck?
I'll
Aye.
vote to close the elections with a motion, close the vote, the elections. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Great. Congratulations, everyone. And once again, I'm very excited to work with the board this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavan, and it will be, I hope you have a good time, and we're happy to have you on board.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from December 9th, 2020. Looking for a motion for approval.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Okay, well, let's start with board member reports, and let's start with Mark Van Tyne, one of our newer board members.
Okay, I didn't realize I had a report to give.
Well, you don't have to. You can just talk about how you had a great flight yesterday.
Yeah, well, again, I'm excited to be part of this board. It's interesting to watch the air traffic in Colorado, particularly at the general aviation airports. I do fly a Glass Air Sportsman, so a single engine aircraft. It's getting challenging to get into a couple of the airports to get gas these days because of the amount of traffic. So, one of my passions is around safety and flight safety, and I think that we're blessed to have a very strong set of air traffic controllers and ATC support in the state, and I'm really pleased about that. So,
Outstanding, Mark.
thank you.
Okay, Trimby.
Yeah, so I attended the Colorado Pilot Association board meeting last week or 2 weeks ago. And the Seaplane Association is going to have a fly-in on June 12th, as well as July 17th. And the Colorado Pilot Association is going to hold their one mountain flying course on August 28th. Let's see what else. They're asking for more, I guess, airport reps for this CAOA. And I guess a lot of the airports don't have anybody representing them. So if you guys know anybody who flies into and out of some of the airports that don't have representatives, they'd be keen to have some more representatives there. Aside from that, I don't know much else. That's my report for today.
Thank you, Trimby.
Yeah, thanks.
And George, I'm sure you probably don't have much to say what's going on at Den.
Just a couple of years. A couple of things from looking back at this past year. I was hoping to have the 2020 year-to-date stats from the airport. We haven't put them all out. We don't have the final December numbers. But obviously, an historic and in not a great way year looking back at the pandemic. The news is hard on the COVID scale. However, Den is going to come out of last year ahead of most folks. So through November, the airport had an annualized decline of right around 43% against 2019's numbers. That's in terms of traffic.
Nationally,
that is-
George, isn't that around over 55% nationally? Isn't that the average?
That's right. We're running very well ahead of most other airports, and it's, you know, part of it's a factor of being a mid-continent hub and having mostly a domestic network, and part of it is a really healthy competition that continues between, you know, United and Southwest and Frontier here in Denver. So we're way out in front of most airports, which is good, but it was still, you know, obviously a tough year for the entire industry. We, you know, continue to see that if there's a light at the end of the tunnel is we're completing the gates project now. By the end of 2022, we'll have 39 new contact gates at the airport. And those aren't on spec. We're continuing to build those because we've been told by the airlines that they want to occupy them. So the future is bright. And one other indication of that is at the end of last week, we announced that we are very much beginning a lengthy process of designing and building a seventh runway on the airport. As you know, the airport's master plan for 12 runways. It's an 8 to 10 year process in partnership with the FAA, with environmentals, but the airport will be putting out RFPs for design and planning to begin that process. It's mainly to make sure that, you know, years from now, the airport's not looking around and realizing it's congested and then beginning an 8-year process. So we've deliberately built in some off ramps because it is a significant investment, but it's really positive news for the industry, for the local economy, and hopefully for the system statewide. I've already taken a lot of time. Thanks.
No, that's outstanding, George. One question I have for you is, due to this downturn, I know you've had a lot of these contracts in place to build the new gates. Have you been able to take advantage of that unfortunately slower time period to maybe get ahead a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So we actually right in April, in the heart of the challenging times, we took a hard look at our capital funding and sort of reprioritized some things and moved up some of the work on our concourses. So just a matter of, you know, when we would need to do you know, some concrete work around the gates or some revamping of the gates, with the traffic being down, we can take advantage of that and do a couple, 3 at a time rather than doing 1 at a time. So we could accelerate that and get in and do some of that scheduled maintenance and scheduled updating, even in the parts of the airport that are, you know, original, 25 years old now, need to be fixed. But we were able to get in there and do that. So I'm lucky to work with a lot of people who are a lot smarter than I am and have been able to reprioritize that. So I think been able to, I guess, take advantage is not a great term when you're talking about a tough year like we have, but make some smart prioritization decisions.
Well, and when you do return, hopefully sooner than later, you'll be hopefully ahead and ready for it. So that's great.
Right.
We're all optimistic that will happen. Amy, anything
Yes.
from the Eastern Slope?
Good morning. Well, there probably is, but I have been traveling, and so I haven't been able to reach out to the airports. So I don't have a report this morning.
Okay. Chick, what's going on in Springs?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have 2 items this morning. First of all, on the commercial side, Colorado Springs Airport welcomes Southwest Airlines beginning service in March. And United announced over the weekend that they are resuming flights that they cut back on due to the pandemic. And the completion of all of the repairs from the fire 2 years ago at the Colorado Springs Airport is now done, and they are moving into their new check-in areas. And so that completes all of the repairs to the terminal, and it looks all brand new. The second item, I'd like to thank the board, particularly the staff, Dave and Todd and Caitlin, and probably Kathy, for their work in putting through the SIB for the Peak Innovation Park. That's a major step forward in being able to complete the infrastructure that is timely right now for the expansion of the Peak Innovation Park. That is a major improvement for both the city from a business standpoint and also from the airport from a sustainability income funding perspective for the airport. And when you have an opportunity to come to Colorado Springs, you'll have an opportunity to see this 4 million square foot Amazon distribution center that's under construction right now and will open later this summer. Plus, there are a number of other major projects that the SIB loan will enable to move forward rapidly because it puts the infrastructure in place in order to complete those projects with utilities, and that was the key focus of that. It also involved the Colorado Transportation Commission because it involved an intersection on Powers Boulevard, which is a state highway. And because of the amount of traffic going in and out of Peak Innovation Park, it needed to have a major rebuild of an intersection. And that design work is all underway and will begin this summer. So thank you again to Dave and Todd and Caitlin and all of the staff that worked on that project and your support, because that process went very rapidly and it took a great deal of energy and investment of your time. And we'd like to thank you once again. That's
outstanding. Congratulations, and hopefully we'll be able to come to Springs as a board and get a tour of the sites in the near future. Okay, congratulations. Let's see, how about Kent?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have been getting very good reports about the FAA Mountain AWAS cams, and very excited to see that second phase relative to airports in Colorado. Also, we'll be excited to hear more today about the opportunity for apps for the division and some new territory there. So with that, that's my report.
Thank you, Kent. From our little world here in Southwest Colorado, I would say that on the western slope, certainly delighted to have Southwest Airlines flying into 2 airports in Hayden and into Montrose. Unfortunately, everybody's still with the second wave, or whatever it is, the third wave in November. It seemed to put a chill a little bit on the travel, but everybody's maintaining at least. From the general aviation side, Telluride, and I think many of my other general aviation friends really had an unbelievable year in 2020. So we're delighted. We were all kind of had our heads hanging low, especially here in Telluride when the cancellations of the big festivals were coming down, and we thought, oh, we're going to be down 20 to 25%. Instead, we ended up finishing 2020 with double digits compared to 2019. So very fortunate. Certainly on the commercial side, it's a little disappointing, but you know, we're all in the same boat. So that's all I have. I think I got everybody, didn't I? I want to be the one to miss somebody on our board. So the next item on the agenda is public comments, and I do believe that we have a few people that have expressed to speak, and I'd like to start with let's see, Don. How about Don Stanton? Are you on?
I am, Ken. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm a retired Navy pilot, Delta pilot, and I'm assigned as the commissioner from Jefferson County on State Transportation Commission. And Director Liu assigned me to be on the State Infrastructure Board. So I work heavily with Davey Lane and the loans that have been going through, and I appreciate listening to how you all work. Thank you.
Excellent. And thank you for helping, particularly with the State Infrastructure Bank and being an active member and approvals.
Thanks, Ken. And also, I am a volunteer over at Jeffco Rocky Mountain Civil Air Patrol in a Sea Squadron. I do aerospace education. I'm a MO.
That's a great airport, I understand. So that's wonderful.
A good one.
Okay, let's see. Mr. Jason Lacone, who is with the Colorado Airport Operators Association. Would you like to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Jason Lacone, I'm the airport director here at Northern Colorado Regional Airport, and also the past president for the Colorado Airport Operators Association. I want to first of all say welcome to the new CAB members, and congratulations, Kenny, on the chair. You will be a great leader for Colorado airports on the CAB, so we really are glad to have you there. Wanted to give a quick update on CAOA. Following this meeting at 1 p.m. today, we're planning our what usually is a winter conference. We're doing a virtual winter conference this year due to COVID. We'll be doing for about 4 hours or so. I think it's from 1 to 4:30, so 3.5 hours. We're going to be providing some legislative updates and industry updates to our membership. Some FAA. Davey Lane is going to be joining us, so thanks, Dave, for participating in that this afternoon. This event's going to be free to all of our members and our partner organizations. So those of you that would like to participate, certainly go to our website, coloradoairports.org, and sign up for the Zoom meeting that'll start promptly at 1 o'clock. For those of you that are interested, we do have an updated website. So, the information there has been updated since the last 30 days. So there's also some links on our next scheduled event, which will be in Telluride this spring. We're still planning that spring conference, June 9th through 11th. And we hope that with the pandemic, it will be at the point where we can still hold that event. We're really excited about heading out to Telluride to Kenny's Airport and those facilities that we tried to get to last year. So anyway, we're excited about that. We're also doing a training event we're planning for right now, some airfield pavement maintenance in late spring, and an airfield lighting session this fall for some of our members as well. That's all I have for CAOA. I just wanted to give a brief update, if I could, on our airport here in Northern Colorado. We are happy to report that a new private development for new hangars just broke ground, the Discovery Air Campus, where they're going to be constructing 4 30,000 square foot hangar facilities on the airport, in addition to associated office space. We've also kicked off a new $17 million terminal design project, which we're really excited about, utilizing CARES Act funding. And, that's going to be replacing our existing terminal facilities. That project is going to be supplemented this year by starting with an apron expansion project up here, where we're going to be expanding the commercial terminal apron to the north. So, a lot of good things are happening up here, and appreciate the time.
Outstanding. Congratulations on FNL's success. That's great. And second, have on the queue is Kelly Sloan with the Colorado Aviation Business Association. Would you like to say a few words, Kelly?
Sure, thanks. Good morning. So on behalf of CABA, I do government relations for the association. Just want to give a little bit of an update as to our legislative agenda this year. As part of it, we are going to be advocating for about $6 million in airport improvement funds that were foregone last year due to the budgetary constraints created by the pandemic. So we're going to be working on that. I've spoken to a number of legislators around the state who are supportive of the idea, and I'll be meeting starting this week with members of the Joint Budget Committee to try and chart out the path to how that's going to look. So that's going to be one of our top agendas this year. Also excited to announce that this year we have started at the state legislature the General Aviation Caucus. We're thankful for the leadership of Representative Alex Valdez from Denver and House Minority Leader Hugh McKeon from Loveland, who've agreed to chair and co-chair respectively So once things become hopefully a little more normal later in the spring at the legislature, we're hoping to hold some lunch hour meetings and have some presentations from the general aviation community. 2 members of the caucus, and I received quite a bit of interest, bipartisan interest in both chambers in the caucus this year, members that would like to learn more about general aviation and its impacts on the state. So those are what we have for right now. Obviously, we'll be prepared to work any defense we need to, but that's what we've got on the go for now. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Kelly, for the update and your activity. Also, I believe, is there a Terrence Terrell that requested some comments? A member of the advisory board of the Pueblo Airport and Fremont County Airport.
Yes, this is Terrence Terrell, a member of advisory board for both airports, and just listening in. And I've been a pilot for over 50 some odd years, awarded the Wright Brothers Award, just recent president of EAA Chapter 808. In Pueblo, we're doing several $1 million improvements at our facility here. Fremont County's done several improvements at the airport there. And at Pueblo, we've seen a pretty good uptick in GA activity at our facility, along with the corporate activity. And just listening in, learn more. And also have had a request of La Vida Airport that's showing some interest into doing some work down there. We haven't spoke with that staff yet, but in hopes that maybe something will be happening down there too.
Outstanding. Thank you, Terrence. And also, please feel free to contact the division office. Everyone on the staff has great relationships with all of these airports in Colorado, and they can be a great resource for you as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. With that, I don't believe we have any more public comments. So, yep, I think we're good, Todd. Let's move on to the director's report. Mr. Ulane.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'll just touch base on a couple of things really quick, just as a follow-on to Kelly Sloan's comments about the funding. As a reminder for all of you, late last year, we had to draw back our grant program for calendar year 2021 from about $8.9 million to 3.25 due to the division's reduced revenues. And so as the governor and the legislature have been putting together their budget for next year, it included a lot of additional funding for transportation to backfill some funding, larger funding within CDOT that has also been lost. And so you will see when we get down to agenda item 16 on advocacy resolution that there is a new piece in there about the board advocating also with the aviation associations to see if there's any general fund money out there that might be available to backfill our grant program this year and see if we can keep those projects moving forward. So again, we appreciate at the staff level the engagement of Kelly and CABA and of course Jason and CAOA to help with that effort. Because again, as state employees here, myself and our team are a little bit limited in what we can advocate for other than just providing information. So Kelly, thank you for that. A couple updates real quick. Aviation weather camera phase 2 in a record time. The FAA signed our reimbursable agreement for that initiative. It's all executed, and if it's not funded today, it should be sometime this week. And with that, we'll be ready to start working with FAA on the deployment plans for the cameras at those 10 airports. And we have a meeting on February 5th with them to talk about that. So the good news is because all of these cameras are going on airports, we're far less impacted by site conditions and access than we were last year with our mountain weather camera system. So this should go relatively quickly, and we expect these to be deployed and up in the FAA system before summertime. So stay tuned for that. Just as a reminder for everybody on the call, the 10 airports that will see those cameras installed by FAA here this coming spring, it's Walden, Jackson County, Aspen, Durango, Eagle, Gunnison, Hayden, Lyman, Leadville, Rifle, and Telluride. So we're excited to continue that great partnership we have with FAA and move forward with that cool safety program. Again, just an administrative heads up on our FAA Remote Tower Memorandum of Understanding. Our original agreement with the FAA was done under a reimbursable clear back in 2013. We've had 4 amendments to that reimbursable agreement after the initial funding. Those have expired, and so reimbursable agreement is no longer the appropriate mechanism to solidify our relationship with FAA on this project. So we have executed a simple memorandum of understanding with FAA that outlines our respective responsibilities and expectations going forward. And it's signed by myself and the FAA's contracting officer. So I do apologize. I realize I think I said that I would include it in the packet. It was not. I will send that out to all of you if you're interested. It's a pretty short 2-page document. You've already heard from Mr. Myers and Mr. Stanton about the Colorado Springs SIB loan, but that was approved by the Transportation Commission on Thursday, the 21st, and we're working now with the airport to get those loan documents updated. It seemed to have great support from the Transportation Commission, and I'd like to give a special note of appreciation to Commissioner Stanton as being the SIB committee rep and certainly an aviation person, that it's really great to have an advocate like that for us on the Transportation Commission. So thank you, Commissioner Stanton. We appreciate all the help you did with that great effort. I will say that with that, the aviation SIB loan pool is fully committed. That means about every penny of our $24 million in that account will be out in play. But the good news is airports make their payments, and that gets replenished to the tune of about $3 million a year. So before too long here, as airports make payments, we'll have some more money in our fund to loan. But it's a great problem to have when you've got all of your money out there in the community doing great things at airports. And then lastly, Jason already took some time to brief you on the CAOA conference. All of the board members are registered for that. Hopefully you can attend. If not, certainly not a big deal, but Caitlin sent you all registrations for that. So you're all good to go at 1 o'clock if you want to join CAOA. So with that, Mr. Chair, unless there's questions, that's the end of my director's report. Oh, and the one thing I will say is that our 2021 airport directories are available. If anybody needs any of those, let Sean and I know. The one thing that we did change, we used to charge our cost for postage on the directories because they're a little heavier to mail. We all got our heads together and realized that collecting $4 every time we mailed one of those was more headache than it was worth, and it really wasn't a tremendous source of revenue for the division anyway. So now folks can go online and they can order a directory, and the division will pay for the cost of the shipping. So, and that's for individual directories. Still, if airports want big boxes, we'll have to make arrangements for a delivery or a FedEx. But again, if anybody wants those directories, they're available for request online, and we'll mail you one for free.
And I think, Dave, that hasn't your request for actual copies declined. I love that you have it available for download as an electronic copy, and so many people can upload it into their iPads or what have you. So.
Exactly. Yeah, we have a PDF version of it, McKinney, and then also, you know, we determined that typically we mail less than 100 of those a year, so it really wasn't cost effective to collect that money. So, yep, you can request a hard copy and download the PDF.
And also, I want to compliment you and your staff on the SIB loan program. I think it was a challenge that the Aeronautical Board gave to you when you were first hired. God, what has it been now, 6 years ago? And I thought it was probably like asking you to climb Mount Everest to allocate every single penny of that into and make good use of it. So outstanding. And how you're turning that revenue back from the interest payments and recycling it into new opportunities for Colorado airports. So you've made this into a great success story. So congratulations.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I really gotta give a great shout out to Todd Green. He and I worked really hard together to make the application process easier and more efficient for airports. We definitely worked with CDOT's Division of Accounting and Finance, who have been awesome partners on this. The Transportation Commission, everybody has worked together, and I'm proud. You know, it's in 5.5 years. This is the 6th SIB loan that we've processed in the last 5.5 years. That's almost as many loans as have been done in the entire history of the program prior to that. So we're excited to continue to maybe find some more capitalization for that program and continue to use that money so airports can have another option to do improvements.
And I think having a person like Mr. Stanton on the TC is aviation friendly to be on the TC is outstanding. So thank you, Don, for your support.
Thanks very much, Ken. It's a pleasure to work with you all.
Great. Okay. Financial update, Mr. Shuck.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. As always, if you or the board have any questions as we go, please just let me know. Otherwise, I will motor through these to try not to put too many people to sleep. So revenue update for December. We came in at 1.1 million revenue, which brings our year-to-date total at 6.4. We are modifying our official FY21 revenue forecast to 14.5 million. That's up from 12.8 million that we previously updated after Q1. As you all know, we revisit our forecast every quarter, and this is the second quarter, and it just reflects the latest trending data we have. Typically, we don't have many changes throughout the year, but as we all know, with the recovery through COVID, this is not a typical year. Breaking down the revenue, the 1.1 million, that was 96.6% of what we had forecast. And by comparison, it's 38.6% of the 2.8 million revenue for December of 2019. And was 100.9% of November revenue, so just up slightly. For January, projections are to be about 1.3 million as we continue to see increased activity through the holiday season as normal. And then again, at the bottom, we just have some context as we talk about how we're doing our methodology, basically showing a 50% decrease year over year in revenues. The plan right now is in March, we'll increase that to 25% decrease from 2019 numbers. As you all know, that's when COVID kind of hit. So working together with the awesome team at Denver, we get their flights and schedules and stuff like that they're doing, and we utilize that to try to come with the best forecast. So we'll continue to monitor that and update that as we go. Our cash balance, the Fund 160 balance finished December at 8.8 million. It was down about 662,000 from the 9.3 million at the end of November. And January's projected end balance is to be flat, right around 8.8 million. The decrease was expected. We'd forecast 8.9 for December closing balance. So everything kind of trended the way that we anticipated it would with drawdowns and everything like that. So good news there.
Bryce, can I ask a couple questions about that real quick?
Absolutely.
So is this fairly typical year over year? That's the first question. The second question is do you keep a cash reserve?
So two-part answer. The typical part, nothing's typical. We do have trends as far as the amount of drawdowns we see now. What those levels are at directly correlates to what our grant program was set at for the previous year, especially with the state and local projects. We do keep the projections each month to kind of show that. What was your second question there, Mark? Sorry.
Is there a cash reserve policy?
There is, and I'm going to push you off for two more slides because I'll go into more detail on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, our next slide is our tax expenditures by month. We had 714,000 in tax disbursements that we sent out in December, 555,000 which was sales tax, 149,000 which was AvJet excise returns, and 10,000 which was excise for AvGas. And tax disbursements followed the normal schedule, being 1 month behind revenue. So for our newer board members, you know, January's happening right now, all that activity will be going. They will actually file everything in February that hits the DER. We'll see that revenue, and then we will disperse those monies back to the airports in March. Once we've had that revenue, have the details, and we can then turn it around. So you'll always see our tax expenditures lagging revenue by a month, and that's just the order in which they get processed. So nothing out of the ordinary here, and it's been a long time since we had something out of the ordinary, which is a good thing. And then our next slide, where I will kind of address your question there, Mark. This is our contingency analysis slide. As approved by the CAB at the August 2020 board meeting, our 2021 CDAG program was 3.25 million. So as we continue to forecast revenues expenditures, we combine that with our conservative approach to the future revenues and our previous 2020 grant program of the 6.7 million. We show that secure financially, as well as our 2021 program, which you can see the first yellow mark there on the slide. that 3.25 is already covered financially. On this graph, as we go into our contingency balance there, Mark, you'll see that purple line at the bottom there. That's essentially a cash reserve. We never would want to even obligate to the point where where we don't have that $1 million kind of buffer room. So that combined with our CDAG program and our cash on hand, if the blue line is above the orange line, which is kind of the total amount that's allocated currently, and that's our current year plus next year, as long as those are showing the way they are, we're in good shape. And you can already see next year's program trending up on there, though that is not official for any airports that are listening. We just wanted to show you that so we can show that we already are anticipating growth in our CDAG program next year, like we've kind of already referred to and like the planning team has been planning for. So this is kind of where that is all kind of lumped together. So we have really a responsible way of showing this. Now, you've also heard me say, and I'm probably bouncing around on the notes here, but that's fine. Right now, current levels, as of publishing, we're at $48 a barrel and 25 million gallons a month at Denver. Oil today is up around 53, and it's been above 50 really since this is published. So that's a good indication for the division's revenues as well, because the relationship between oil prices is pretty linear with jet fuel prices. With our contingency program, we did have to adjust last year's, but that's because obviously we didn't plan for COVID, nor should any responsible forecasting or budgeting model plan for something that unforeseen and drastic. We take into account dips in the market, whether it be oil and forecast, because we actually forecast less than EIA does looking forward, just because I had done the analysis when I started here and kind of came up that they're usually about 13% high over the history. So we actually set ours for the current month. It's obviously same numbers for months 1 through 3. We run at 6.5% less than the EIA forecast, and for months 3 forward, we run 13% less than their forecast for fuel prices. Again, it's a very conservative approach, but we want to make sure that we're not over obligating things in an environment that is somewhat predictable. And then from fuel flow, when we kind of set our worst case program and stuff like that, I mean, Denver was pumping out, I think it was an average of like 43 million gallons a month. The 35 seemed incomprehensible that it would get that low, and then COVID happened. So we believe we have a good methodology. Our forecast previously, we were very accurate. The 96.6% that we were at this month would have actually been one of the wider gaps that we had shown the last 2 years. So everything's kind of taken into account there. And this slide, you'll see it every time I send one of these out here. And if any time that blue starts to dip where it's looking lower than that, that's when we'll be having the discussions as a team here and with the board as far as any adjustments that we need to make and why they're happening. So we're well ahead of that. And going back to the cash balance, yes, revenues are down. We did have to cut our grant program, but using this as a model, we're still in a very healthy financial shape as far as our cash balance. And that's because
Bryce locked out.
Am I
He's
back
frozen.
now? Okay, I'm back
There
now.
you go.
So yeah, so we
Chair
went through.
would like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Chick.
I'd like to just fill in the blank a little bit for the new board members. When Director Elaine came on board 6 years ago, the Aeronautics division was in serious financial difficulty and had to borrow money from CDOT in order to continue to operate. And he and Bryce and the rest of the staff have made this whole model come to fruition. And the beauty of that is that you can see on the chart right now exactly where we are. And as Bryce said, we're in excellent position considering the pandemic and our funding to be able to continue to serve the state of Colorado. And these guys and gals just get a great big attaboy for doing a great job. And another attaboy to Ray Beck, because he was the chairman at that time, who brought Mr. Beck on board, or Mr. Elaine on board. And that was a very smart move. So attaboys all the way around, because it has really proven to be one of the smartest decisions and the most aggressive team put together that we've been able to see in comparison with other states. So That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Chick.
Well said, Chick.
So yeah, so you'll see this dashboard every time, Mark, and anytime there's any question from you guys, please let me know. And I will highlight anytime there's anything that's really changing, whether it's good or bad from an indicator standpoint, because this covers us in a lot of ways.
Very good.
Okay, next slide is our admin expenses. As you know, state statute mandates our admin expenses cannot exceed 5% of the previous year's gross revenue. So our mandated cap for FY20 is 1.32 million. The CAB approved in January 2020 a budget of 1.28 million. Currently, we've expended 501,000 on admin in FY21. We're projecting a total spend of 1.05, which would be 3.94% of FY20 revenue, so well below the 5% statutory cap. Nothing out of the ordinary here. We're going to be well below like we typically are.
And just for everybody's benefit, for everyone's knowledge, the fiscal year for CDOT is July 1st through June 30th, correct?
That is correct, yeah. Okay, our next slide looks at fuel flow at Denver. Again, due to the large impact fuel flow at Denver has on our finances, we track and forecast their fuel flowage on a monthly basis to ensure revenue forecast accuracy. The orange line there obviously is the data from from calendar year 2020. As you can see, March is when the wheels fell off as far as flow numbers, and we are still slowly bridging that gap. The flow at December for Denver was 25.1 million gallons. It was up 3% from November's 24.3, but again, context-wise, that's down 44% from December of 2019. The forecast for January flowage is 24.9 million, which would be a decrease of 37% of January 2020. And also just for the new board members there, as you can see from the light blue line, which is 2018, the dark blue line, which is 2019, the month-over-month trends in a normal world are remarkably consistent, and they had been for the last 4 or 5 years since the last downturn. All we see at Denver year over year is they were always increasing, but as far as month to month, we're able to identify pretty static and linear trends, which helps with our forecasting. Now, again, COVID, as we all know, threw that out the window, but once things get back to normal, you'll see a real consistency month over month, which makes my job a lot easier as far as it comes to forecasting. So just a little extra context there for the new board members.
Well, I think that now that we have George Merritt on our board, I think we're going to put it on his shoulders to make sure that his numbers improve.
I completely agree.
I'm out there pumping the gas.
And
we're hoping that Colorado Springs starts to add more and more to your.
There you go.
Absolutely. And our final dashboard just looks at our monthly expenses by cost center. So in December, the division had 1.49 million in total expenditures. As normal, airport tax reimbursements were the biggest portion of our expenditures at 714,000. There was plenty of drawdowns as expected on our CDAG program, which came in about 654,000. And then everything else in the pie there. And the board members can go into OpenGov if they'd like, or reach out to me if they need any extra information on that and kind of see that breakdown. But as normal, we had 2 big pieces of the pie, like typically. So nothing out of the ordinary as far as that goes. That's the end of the financial report. I am happy to take any additional questions from the board.
Hearing none.
Yep, I will pass along.
Bryce, outstanding, Bryce. I think that as it's so amazing to think back to, as Chick mentioned 6 years ago, there was a lot of concern, a lot of excitement going on during that period of time, and here we are managing a unexpected pandemic like we are, and I don't see any beads of sweat, at least on the video, on your forehead. So outstanding.
Thank you, Kenny.
Okay, we'll go on to the next update, number 10, the strategic plan update. Director Elaine.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to give you a quick update on how we're doing on our 2018 strategic plan. And I think for the edification of the new board members, just a little bit of a history on this. You know, we know that as a division and as a board, state statute mandates that we process fuel tax disbursements under a certain formula. And we know that we have to have a infrastructure grant program. And we know that we're responsible for promoting aviation education and aviation safety along with those two other missions. But within state statute, the board really has got very broad latitude on what we do to accomplish our mission and how we do it. And so as then a relatively still new director here, I thought it was important that we as a staff and a board and all of our stakeholders really have an idea of what the board wants us to focus on for the benefit of all of our stakeholders. And so we, back in late 2017, really kicked off a process to develop the division's first ever strategic plan that was finalized by the board in January of 2018. And that strategic plan, it revalidated our mission, our vision, and our goals, which was great because we didn't have a clear idea of what those were. And we worked with our stakeholders, CAOA, CABA, Colorado Pilots Association, the FAA, the board, to develop this strategic plan that included 6 overarching goals with a total of 28 underlying objectives to accomplish those goals. And it was really a great tool for staff as we were focused on what we want to do, because we could do way more things than we have the bandwidth to do. So the strategic plan gave me as a director some idea of what you all wanted us to work on. It allowed us to tie those goals and objectives back to the budget, because some of those did have financial implications. And it's really, I think, been a great tool for us to make sure we're moving the ball forward with the division's effort. And so since the last update, which was over a year ago, normally we'd give these updates at each of the CAOA conferences, but unfortunately we didn't have one in June. We've now gotten 22 of those 28 objectives are either complete or underway in some form, and that's up from 18 a year ago. A couple that I'll just call out real briefly since then. Objective 2.3 really called for us to look to develop and deploy applications for mobile devices specific to our stakeholder needs. That would be like an airport directory or a pilot passport program, something that, you know, recognizes pilots who achieve milestones by flying to Colorado airports. That's not a new thing. A lot of states have been doing those for a number of years. We've just never had one here in Colorado. So that was one that we're exploring. We're actually in an interesting round of conversations with the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. They've got an amazing passport app for each state that they've put together nationally. And I'm always big about not necessarily reinventing the wheel or duplicating somebody else's great effort. So we're actually having some conversations with AOPA to see if there's opportunities to partner with them and leverage their existing app rather than incurring the expense and the maintenance of doing our own, which we may end up doing, but we're still moving forward to look with that. I'm an app guy. I like apps. A lot of the states have done passports with like little typical passport books. You know, but now there's great ways, and this is what AOPA's app really does. It integrates this social media thing where you can take a picture of yourself flying to a small airport, promoting the airport. And so we're really excited about what this might mean for us going forward. So stay tuned. I think that one's going to carry forward for sure. And then the last one that we've already touched base on also was we've really finalized for the most part the process improvement that we identified for the SIV loan program all the way from application through closeout. And really Todd and I are down to the final step with that, which is really getting with the policy folks at CDOT to update our internal policy directives and our rules on how those are processed to align with the new way we're doing it now. And again, Chick, I want to give a shout out back to you and the Colorado Springs Airport. The loan that the Colorado Springs Airport put together for their firefighting and de-icing aircraft ramp back in 2019. They were very gracious in being our beta tester for the online application process, and they helped us work through some challenges as we work to integrate the application into WIMS rather than doing it on an old handwritten paper form, which is literally how it was done before. So thanks to the Springs Airport for helping us actually real-time test that. Made it a lot better for everybody. So that's really it. I will say that it's been 3 years since we've done strategic our strategic plan update. It's due for an update. We've accomplished a lot. There's a couple things in there that I think we all agreed are really not good ideas in the end. They're not going to happen. So here in the first quarter, we're now working with Aviation Management Consulting Group. That was the group that we retained to help us facilitate the strategic plan back in 2018. We'll be working with them again to do another strategic plan, and we're going to start that process here off as soon as we get the procurement done for that. So we'll look forward to engaging the board and again, CPA, CAOA, and all of our stakeholders to say, all right, what do we want to work on for the next 3 years? What's important to our team? Is it electric airplanes? Is it continued development of aviation education and some of the other things? So we'll look forward to that. So I would ask any of you board members, we had 2 board members that were that served on that strategic planning engagement team last time. If you're interested, maybe reach out to me, reach out to Chair Mainpa and see if we can get a couple of other board members. It's great to have the buy-in. So that's it for the strategic plan update, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. And yeah, look forward to yeah, as we have a new board and working on some new strategic planning. So item is some action items. Mr. Shuck, would you like to guide us through the division revenue and administrative budget requests?
Sure. So from a division revenue standpoint, as we look towards FY 2022, our current forecast for that fiscal year is at 20 million. So I'll use that to preface everything else here. So the purpose of this is we are seeking board action to allocate funding for all costs associated with the division. This funding request includes all costs associated with the cab, division staff and salaries and benefits, office supplies, CDOT overhead charges. So for FY 2022, we are requesting 725,000. That would match our anticipated 5% cap for the revenue from this fiscal year, which, as we mentioned earlier, has been revised to be forecast at 14.5 million. Per state statute, admin costs cannot exceed 5% of the previous year's gross revenue. The admin budget last year was approved by the cab at 1.28 million. That included all staff salaries, as we briefed you on in December. In order to align better with our budgeting practices with other state agencies, we've allocated some staff costs to the new program delivery cost center. That would be our planning positions and our communications manager positions. Again, that change was one brought about after conversations with DAF, with the Attorney General's office, and that's just bringing us more in line with other state agencies. So I will ask for that separately here at the end, but just to kind of put an apples to apples comparison, the amount we are requesting for FY 22, the combined total is 1.19. So that is less than we had approved by the board in FY 21 and right in line with our forecasted spend this fiscal year as well. Also a note, as per state statute, our administration budget must also be approved by the Transportation Commission each year, and that goes along with CDOT's overall administration budget request. That typically happens in April this year. So again, a quick summary. We are seeking approval from the board for our revenue budget of 20 million, as well as our administration and budget cost center for FY22 of 725,000.
Okay. Any discussions from the board or questions? Okay, hearing none, looking for a motion to approve 725,000 increase for fiscal year, is that 21?
It's fiscal year 2022, and it's not an increase. That would just be the budget level for the year.
To approve the budget level. Okay, motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. For approval, all in favor say aye.
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 Any nays? Hearing none, it's approved.
Thank you, Kenny and the board. Our next approval item is our program delivery cost center. Again, piggybacking on everything I just said, this is splitting out the salaries for the planners and the communications manager. Again, aligning more with other agencies within CDOT. and throughout the state as far as they track pure administration costs. So these have been separated out. That is why you see on the memo, there was no approval level for FY20 or FY22 or 21, I should say, but we are requesting $465,000 for this cost center. Again, the total budget request of the combined two is 1.12 compared to 1.28 million that you had approved last year. And our forecast is spend right now of just over $1 million. So in line with that, again, the actual expenditures in these cost centers are not increasing from a budgetary perspective. So we are seeking the board's approval to spend $465,000 to fund the program delivery cost center in FY 2022.
Okay, looking for a motion for $465,000 for program delivery for fiscal year 2022.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone against? Okay, that's been approved. Thank you, Bryce. All right, now there's an aeronautics property budget request. Mr. Green, Todd Green, like to go through that with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. So I'll kind of sum up all of this as well. So every year, January is our main meeting where we are doing our requests for the upcoming fiscal year. And so this agenda item, honestly, with the next few as well, is really requesting the funding to and the budget to fund our programs through the next fiscal year, which would start on July 1. And so this is honestly the first one. And so this one is our property budget request. And so what this is for is this, we're requesting $50,000 to fund the aeronautics property budget. And again, what this is accounted for is this accounts for all costs associated with the office building. And this can include our capital improvements, maintenance, ground leases, utilities, and really any other costs associated with the actual building we work in, at least when COVID's not around, we actually work in it. And then our associated storage unit as well. And kind of the capital improvements, that really ranges anywhere from replacing our roof on the building, which we did last year or the year before, and the HVAC unit on top of the building, all the way down to honestly the coffee maker and the garbage disposal. And we did replace the garbage disposal a few years ago as well. So just that's good for now. So just a heads up. But really, we are requesting $50,000 for this cost center, and it'll honestly be split between operating, which is about $35,000 just to pay all those bills, and then those capital costs about $15,000. And this is a large decrease from our previous fiscal year. Just understanding where we are in relation to COVID response and understanding that we aren't all in the office these days, we've really tried to pare back some of those capital expenses for the building, knowing that our reduced revenue, it doesn't make sense to put a lot of money into the building and improvements when we're not actually at the building at this point. So at this point, I am requesting approval of $50,000 to fund the aero property budget through FY 2022. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just a quick one. Does that include IT expenses or IT capital?
Yes. So IT expenses actually go through a different expense. We actually pay a certain amount to CDOT every month that takes care of a lot of those expenses. So yes, it does include those, but those kind of come out of a different area, honestly.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question about vehicle expense?
Yes, sir.
Vehicle expense, Todd?
I will actually throw it. Go ahead, sir.
No, is that Chick had requested, does that include vehicle expense?
The vehicle expenses we have for our 2 fleet vehicles that we have out here are part of the indirect budget, for lack of a better term, that comes from CDOT. And that is all accounted for actually within the admin cost center. So that's one of the broad things included for there.
Okay.
So yes, so fleet and those IT services that you were talking about hit that indirects budget, not directly within this aero property budget.
A question I have for you, Todd, is there in that, I know that you're not working in the office right now, but I'm sure that there's some hopeful anticipation that you will get back to the office. Will there be any precautions or anything else? In other words, janitorial expenses or anything else that would need to be included for sanitation and what have you, or sterilization?
Yeah, honestly, Kenny, at this point, we don't expect really any additional expenses in regard to kind of COVID response once we actually do come back. Our office is about the perfect setup for this type of situation. We all have our individual offices. I mean, we may not sit around the coffee maker as much in the future and just chat, but we're very different from the main CDOT headquarters, which was kind of more of a collaborative workspace. We have our own offices and we can really maintain that social distancing going forward. But we've maintained with our current janitorial staff that they've done a lot. They come out every week and do a full sanitizing of the building and kind of keep us going. So we're really set up for if and when CDOT lets us come back, our office will be ready for us.
Excellent. Okay, I guess with that, I'll look for a motion to approve fiscal year 2022 property budget request of $50,000.
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that will be approved in your request there, Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, item number 12 on the agenda is the 2021 Colorado Discretionary Aviation Grant State and Local Grant Funding Hearing. Mr. Green, would you like to guide us on the 21 grant approval resolution?
Yes, thank you again. So this request revolves around the kind of first request having to do with our annual grant program. So this request is purely for our state and local grant applications. And this is, so this doesn't include any of those federal grants. This is just including state money and local money to get some projects approved. And I will have to say this grant program looks a lot different than last year's program. Mainly due to that reduced revenue due to the COVID response. And so this year for state and local grant applications, we have 4 applications we're looking for approval on that total $861,718 of state funds. And it's kind of broken down into 3 pavement maintenance requests and a runway lighting request as well. And I'll kind of go through each of them individually here as well. But this slide actually shows each of those 4 projects with the state funding, local funding, and kind of total showing, because you can see that with the additional $95,000 of local funding, this the total funding kind of comes just under that $1 million for this first round of grants. And to give you guys an understanding of the full level of grants this year, in addition to those federal match grants, which we plan to approve in the April program, we're hoping to be right around that $3.25 million grant program that Bryce talked about a little bit earlier that the CAB approved in August of 2020. So we're expecting our federal match program to be around $2.3 million, and then in addition to this $861,000 that we're requesting right now. So we'll kind of go through each of these individual grant applications individually here. So first one is the Burlington Kit Carson Airport out east. And what this is $250,000 of state funding for airfield pavement maintenance. And there's a good picture showing you right there. So the main amount of these funds will be really for the runway, the asphalt surface. It is starting to degrade and get some weathering going on. And so this pavement maintenance project will really help the pavement condition come up to a much better level with that. And then if there are additional funds remaining in that grant, we will go a little bit further out than the runway and hopefully work on some taxiways, some ramps, and that brand new turnaround on the end of the runway as well. So that is Burlington. The next one is Fort Morgan. So very similar project as Burlington, another airfield pavement maintenance project. This one for $225,000. And again, this will be mainly for the runways, the turnarounds, and the taxiway into the ramp area for the airport. And then also if there are remaining funds in this grant, they also do need a little bit more pavement maintenance back into the hangar areas. They're starting to degrade as well, and they are public use services back within there as well. So again, another pavement maintenance grant. And one thing I didn't mention is even with our reduced revenue stream, one thing we really are trying to focus on and really give our priority at this point is really maintaining those assets that are out there and really pushing the pavement maintenance program. So again, we had planned on about an $8 million program this year for state and local. And we actually had to pare that down immensely. We had actually another 14 projects that we weren't able to do due to the reduced revenue. Again, we tried to put that priority mostly on pavement maintenance projects. So this is just another example of that. I believe the next airport is probably Holyoke. So another airport out on the Eastern Plains, and this was the request for a runway lighting rehabilitation. So this one's for $346,500. This runway is actually looking to get rehabbed here within the next 5-ish years, and usually we try to do those lighting projects along with those big rehabilitation projects. But the current status of the lights at this airport, I will say, we're very worried it won't make it to those 5 years. And so we've talked to airport staff about this project quite a bit. And honestly, they're worried about the lights actually turning on every time they actually try to turn them on. So we're going to help them out and get those lights rehabbed to ensure that at night those lights still will turn on and that their approach will still be able to be active throughout the night. So this was kind of one of those emergency grants that we wanted to be able to help the airport out to be able to make sure they are still open when needed. So again, $346,500 to Holyoke. And then
so too many ground squirrels there, Todd?
To be honest, Kenny, I'm not quite sure what animals are chewing those up, but I believe this is one of those direct burial as well. And so really anything digging through there that is honestly getting hungry on the Eastern Plains wants to chew on those wires for some odd reason. But yes, it's we're a little worried about those making it the next 5 years. So
excellent.
And then our last project is down in the southwestern part of the state over in Pagosa Springs at Stevens Field. So this is a pavement maintenance grant. And this is one of the ones that's actually not for the main runway. You can actually see it here in the picture of the taxiway coming off the right side there. And they have the degradation of that pavement has gotten kind of to an emergency level as well. And that's really the reason this project stayed in our priority this year. And we're hoping to do about $40,000 grant with them to do some master repairs. They were having some very bad FOD issues as those aircraft are trying to come down that taxiway Bravo section to get really to the main airfield and taxiway Alpha. So this is, $40,000 for Pagosa Springs. And so that kind of sums up the 4 different airports we're requesting funding for. And this next slide shows all of those again. And so at this point, I am looking for a motion to approve the 2021 state and local grant applications totaling $861,718 and the associated resolution 2021-02 approving these grants. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Would anyone like to provide a motion?
Sure.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion or further questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose? Hearing none? That's approved.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, still with you, Todd, on the statewide fiscal year 2022 statewide initiatives budget request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I swear I'm almost done spending the money.
Good.
So what this is so we just talked about our grant program. Per state statute, the division itself is actually able to accept some of the aviation revenue as well. Because there's a lot of projects out there that don't just help one specific airport, and so the division itself is able to accept some of those funds to do projects that provide statewide benefit, and that's really what these statewide initiative budget requests are for. I will definitely say thank you to the staff. We had to put together quite a few memos for this packet. This is actually our largest packet of the whole year, and so we have a memo following this in the board packet that explains each one of these statewide initiatives. On this sheet right here, on the slide right here, you'll show 20 different line items on this, but on that FY22 request, that furthest right column, you'll see that we're actually not requesting funding for each of these programs at this point. So the bottom three on this list were for programs that were actually one-time requests, and they've kind of come and gone. So we actually had some requests back in 2020 to do some WIMS development, our mountain AWAS cameras that we've talked about already, and then our PFAS program. So we won't be requesting funding for those again in the future. And then above that, you will see another 17 items. And so each of those that request funding through this program, they actually do have a detailed memo following in the board packet. So I'd be happy to answer any of those questions, but each of those 14 that are requesting funding total 1.47 million. And that is actually what we're requesting funding for at this point. But prior to that, there are 3 on there that we are not requesting funding for at this point. They are still supported statewide initiatives like the EA Oshkosh Air Venture, our Education Cost Center, and our weather cameras for airports. And so I will say that we reduced those programs to 0 just due to where we're sitting with the COVID response and really unknown what the revenue is going to look like in the future. But if things start recovering a little faster than expected, we may come back to the board at a future time to reinstate some funding for those programs as well. So purely a heads up on that. But at this point, I am requesting $1.47 million to support the 14 projects on this list. And I would be happy to answer any questions you have about any of these individual initiatives. Or if you want, you can actually pull any of these initiatives off for individual action. But I am requesting, if possible, to approve all 14 kind of in one motion. But again, be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Well, I like your conservative approach of a reduction now of over $1 million compared to fiscal year 21. So I like that approach.
Yeah, and I'll add to that as well, Kenny. So one thing we really did try this year as well is we kind of did a look at actual spend over the last few years. And as you can see, we reduced a lot of the requests in many of those budgets down to kind of match that actual expense we have been seeing. So we definitely wanted to do kind of a zero-based budget on this because revenues have definitely decreased, and we wanted to show that we are watching that too. There are 2 that I will bring up specifically that actually show increases. And the first one of those is the crack fill program, line item 4 there. We requested last year $150,000, but I'm requesting $200,000 this year because I would actually like to purchase 2 new crack fill machines to spread out throughout the state for our crack fill statewide initiative. And so that's one thing you'll see that increase just because I want to purchase 1 more machine to start replacing one of the machines in the state and also fill a gap that we have in the state too. And the second line item that's increased as well is number 16, the USDA Wildlife Services initiative, and that increased from $185,000 request last year to $200,000 request this year. And that is mainly due to our 5-year agreement with USDA ends on June 30th of this year. And I am in the process of negotiations with USDA to get another 5-year agreement in place. I wanted to increase that a little bit to make sure that when I do actually get that final number for this upcoming fiscal year, I have enough money to spend on it. So I'm hoping not to spend that full $200,000, but that's purely protecting me during the contracting process. So those are really the 2 that showed an increase. And again, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you guys have.
I think that's a good move. USDA is very valuable to Colorado airports. Any questions from the board?
I have a question about item number 7, and is that just the routine maintenance that we picked up on all the AWAS cameras and programs statewide?
Yes, Schick, that is what that accounts for. So we have a ongoing contract with OIT, the Office of Information Technology, to perform that service for us. And yes, that is to cover all of the internet service for each site, the power to each site. And then as if we have lightning strikes, like we had a lightning strike a while back that took an entire AWAS down, or the Levita fire as well took an entire AWAS down. So yes, this is the ongoing repair and maintenance for that program. And this also includes funding for the ongoing maintenance and repair of the new cameras that we installed on each of those sites as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
I have one question for you, Todd. Sorry. Thank you. I'm just noticing there, item 6, you zeroed out education, and just kind of wanted to get a sense of what that what that impact looks like. I totally agree with the conservative approach, but just want to get a sense of what the impact of that will be.
So George, this is Dave. I'll take that one. The division has not done any of our education grants in years. It's been quite a long time. Historically, most of that funding went to programs like the Wings over the Rockies Museum had an aerospace program for young kids to get teachers kits to teach them about aviation and those things. We sort of reformatted that program about 3 years ago to talk more about opportunities to help provide funding to support workforce development and maybe higher education rather than primary, K through 6 sort of education. Some of the ideas that we had talked about were Metro State had approached us. They had a backlog in their ATP training program for want of a CRJ 700 fixed simulator. That would be something where, that would be eligible under the board's approved policy to help fund something like that. Has a definitive way to show that they're doing things to put pilots in the pipeline. We talked about things like helping fund the Cherry Creek Public Schools new Innovation Academy, where they have an A&P school that's teaching new A&P mechanics. Unfortunately, that's a pretty largely discretionary piece of our budget that doesn't rise to the level of priority as airport improvements. So we had to put those on hold. The board had also approved the addition of a new FTE on the division staff that would help administer and track those grants. One of the things we were really eager, and we will be doing when we get back to those, is showing what we got for our money and is it really making a difference with workforce development, whether it's airport management, pilots, air traffic controllers. We put that position on hold as well. So I would love to see that come back. We've done some really cool things. There's a lot of need out there. I know you all at DEN have talked with Metro State about opportunities to collaborate on doing some things potentially. We'd love to be a part of that. There's a lot of need out there. So that's really, I think, again, what we're looking at, but it's broad. It's very broad, and you all as board members have a lot of discretion and latitude to determine what we would invest those monies in once we have them available.
Thanks for that, Dave.
And I'll just add something on there quick as well. The FY21 request that you're looking at there was 250,000 down to 0. When the pandemic hit, that was that was the first thing that we had kind of cut because we were just about to start hiring for that position. So our actual FY21 spend in that cost center, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it's going to be less than $10,000. So even though 250 was approved, when we made the adjustments necessary when COVID hit, that number was kind of cut. So it's not like we're going from 250 to 0. We're going really from a $10,000 actual spend to 0 plan. So it's not like we're just absolutely cutting something out that's been a core thing.
Excellent.
For the long term here, like Dave said, future, absolutely. Okay.
And also
sorry,
one thing I just
it's not kind of cutting something. Go ahead, Kenny.
Go ahead, Bryce. You were just cutting in and out a little bit. So
yeah, no. So it's not something being cut that we've had, a lot of investment in the past. There, that was kind of our next step with things healthy, but that was cut. So it's not going 250 to 0 in actual spend in a year. It never got to that level. So just some context.
Okay, and then I just have a quick question on the airport internships. Is that kind of that request? It was down to 110,000. Is that just reflecting the realistic number? Because I don't recall ever even coming close to spending that budget amount in the request. Is that accurate?
You're spot on that, Kenny. So yeah, again, we were looking at actual spend over the last few years. Again, Bryce and I really like spreadsheets. And so that was kind of one of the things we did is we were looking and everybody's giggling now in the office, which is awesome. Okay. But yeah, we actually did budget to actual spend, and we're like, it makes no sense for us to protect $150,000 in a cost center where we know we're not going to spend it. And so what we did is decreased, like this one and many of the others, decreased those amounts. So we're able to spend that money in a different place where we actually can spend that money. But yes, you're spot on that. I mean, I think the most we have spent in an actual year was closer to 90. That's the highest we've had in about the last 4 years. And so we left a little bit of buffer in there, knowing that airports were going to have a little bit probably reduced staff at times to still be able to have a new airport join in the program and still be able to fund it at that level, at the normal level.
Great. And any other board members have comment? Go ahead, Mark.
One quick question. First, I thought as I read through all these last night, the information was was there, was great. So thank you for that. When I got to the USDA, I wondered, is that of that 200,000 a year, is that the total services they provide Colorado, or do they supplement or augment some of the costs out of the federal budget?
So that should be total cost for the entire program for them to run. And again, Kenny talked about it a little bit. This is one of our main programs that provide Part 139 training for all of our commercial service airports. But this is a full cost to run that program. They're really not having to spend any money out of their pocket to do it. So far this year, I will say through 6 months of the 12, they've already spent 70% of their funding, but I have already informed them of that, and they kind of know what to expect these next 6 months as well. So, but no, yeah, this includes full cost from their program as well. They ended up having to spend a little bit more this year just because they actually hired on a brand new airfield wildlife biologist this year as well, because our previous one went on to bigger and better things. So we have a new USDA biologist on staff now as well. So that's the reason we're a little bit higher this year than normal. But again, that 200 should cover the entire contract.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Any other board members have any questions? I think one thing I would just add is that, again, it's important to understand this is a request that the board approves that is taken to the state. And anything that does come up, I think we're pretty nimble. Dave's pretty quick, and the team is real quick to bring that to our attention in further board meetings through the next fiscal year. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 statewide initiatives budget request in the amount of $1.47 million.
So move.
Seconded.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose? Okay, with that, there's your request there, Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I think I am done spending the money at this point.
I hope so. No, I think you have a really good story. I imagine the state is coming down with some framework for your budget request for fiscal year 22. So I think you have I would suspect that this is going to exceed any mandates or direction given by the state. So excellent work.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we haven't had anything formal come down, but it's something we were definitely preparing for and wanted to make a good budget based on what current revenue looked like. So thank you, sir.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Chair, before we move on, I will clarify that as I understand it, largely CDOT does not necessarily have the ability to direct how we spend our money or to demand particular reductions because of the way we're structured under all of you. So there could be some things with HR, for instance, we were all subject to the same mandatory furlough days that the rest of the state employees were. But when it comes down to this level of budget granularity, I would believe that state statute still provides you with the ability to determine how our budget is allocated.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell the governor that tattle on you, because I think you answered my phone call on one of your furlough days.
Oh, Kenny, you're not supposed to do that, but you're on the board. I've got no choice but to answer your call anytime, day or night. Any of you.
Great.
So, all right.
Well,
all right.
With that, well, let's go to item number 14 on program updates on the remote tower. The world famous Mr. Bill Payne, are you on?
I am definitely on.
All right.
I'm continually on.
Oh God, so, you turned the video on. Hold on a second. I need to dim my screen.
This is the real me. So I want to give you a quick update. As you all know, with the furlough, FAA at headquarters has been unable to travel. So we've had that's done an interruption, it's created an interruption to our testing program. In last year, we proposed an alternative virtual testing procedure to allow us to do that with headquarters personnel participating remotely. Initially, that was turned down, and we were able to talk to them a little bit more, and they've since recanted. So we're going to be able to do a virtual testing of the system. And that's going to begin on February the 22nd. Now, that's the reason for that is the Leesburg program is having to go back and do some additional testing based on some requests from NATCA to be able to fine tune some of the visual requirements, and also to compare the visibility from the mobile air traffic control tower to what they see in the remote facility. I'm involved in some of that from with Leesburg, going through developing the VSR observational requirements, and so we're hoping to be able to get that done. I'm disappointed because the testing that they're going to do for us virtually is going to be 2 hours a week for 6 weeks. And I've asked, I said, well, you know, we're in a bit of a situation where we're burning our schedule. So I've asked that they try and redo that. It's so far I've been hitting a brick wall, but it seems unrealistic to get 12 hours of data and spread that over 6 weeks time. But anyway, we're going to start that. The good news is we're going to be able to use our NATCA Article 114 rep. That's the representative from the bargaining unit that is on our program. And currently, as of this morning, they meaning the FAA and NATCA are saying that this person has to participate remotely. I find that a little bit disconcerting, not disconcerting, but a little bit weird because he lives literally 3 miles away from the facility. So I'm working on that. I think I've got talking to NATCA headquarters, and I think we may be coming up with a solution to that. And let's see what else. The other thing we're trying to work on is to get a display, a radar display into the mobile tower to see, because the controllers there are having a difficult time because of the mobile tower itself doesn't meet any of the visual requirements set forth in for an air traffic control tower. Let's see. I think that's probably about it. If there are any questions or comments, I'll entertain those now.
I see lots of TBDs on this timeline, and I know you're doing the best you can on this. So we're just kind of at the mercy of the FAA. So understood.
Hey, Bill, just
well, the reason we had, somebody else had a question. Mark?
I'm sorry. Yeah, Bill, it's Mark. I'm curious, you know, how you compare where we are here to Leesburg in the progress.
Okay, Leesburg is ahead of us. They're going through the operational visual requirements phase. There are basically three certification phases we have to go through. The visual, I don't believe we're going to have any problem with that because we've already had subject matter experts from headquarters in doing our previous phases. The next, and this additional testing we're doing at Leesburg is NATCA is asked to be able to, they want to force a requirement that a controller has to see an airplane on arrival 3 miles away. Well, there's some open-ended things there. For example, what size airplane? What's the atmospherics like? What's the visibility? And I think they'll get through that pretty good. There'll be some weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth, but I believe they'll pass that. The bigger certification that not just Leesburg, but also us, what we will face is going to be type, what they're calling type certification. This is a term that technical operations tech ops has come up with, and that is to certify the equipment, the remote tower equipment as non-fed. And right now we're trying to develop, working with the folks at headquarters to develop requirements for that. That's going to be, technical operations has always been a challenge to work with in deployment of systems. And one other thing, we have a radar display, as you can see on the picture there. We have a radar display, but that is being driven by SWIM, System-Wide Information Management System. And it is a non-certified display, and we've done some testing and we find that to be pretty darn good. But this summer, beginning in June, we're going to get a STARS display, Standard Terminal Automation Replacement System, which is the same system that's used in at DIA, APA, and it's a certified tower system, and that's owned by the FAA. We've been on a couple of calls with them now to install that. So that's.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? One thing I'd like to offer, it's kind of an open invitation. I hope Jason doesn't mind me throwing this out to our board, but especially our new board members. If you ever do have an opportunity to go to FNL to go take a look at this, it's absolutely impressive. And I would encourage you to, if you are passing through the area, to stop in and say hello to Jason Leone, and he's happy to give you the tour.
I fly into KFNL about 3-4 times a week with students. So
You should take the students in there with you too, Trimby. It'll blow their mind. It's pretty cool. Okay. I guess there's no action on that. So I guess we're at number 15, the Aeronautical Board, Colorado Aeronautical Board governance document update. Mr. Director Ulane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This will be a very quick item. I think as all the board members are aware, we do have a CAB adopted governance doc that outlines the CAB's authority, roles, responsibilities, and codes of conduct. We simply need to re-adopt the existing governance documents to reflect the 3 new CAB members that joined us this month. And then again, as we do every August during our annual board staff workshop, we'll review these in more detail to make sure they're still current or to discuss any other changes that might be needed. But for now, the only change is the addition of our 3 new board members to the governance doc.
Okay, look for a motion to approve the CAB governance document.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
Mark. Okay, and with all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose? Okay, you have your governance document, Director Ulane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next item on the agenda is the legislative issues. Chair, the 2021 advocacy resolution for 2021-03. So would you like to update that on, Dave?
You bet, Mr. Chair. Again, every year, this is something the board's been doing for the last 6 years. You all have been adopting an advocacy resolution or advocacy platform on things both at the federal and state level that impact aviation here in Colorado. This has really been a great tool for me. I came to the division from an advocacy role with an aviation association. And so we get asked quite a bit at the state level, well, what do y'all think about this? Or what's your position on that? And when you all have proactively adopted a document like this, it really lets me as the director respond very quickly. Not everything can be covered, but most of the major things that are out there are addressed in this. And again, it's very helpful for me because again, as a state employee, I have to be very careful about not necessarily lobbying for anything, but you all have the ability to do that as board members. So this helps with that as well. So just a real quick recap of what is in this year's advocacy resolution. There is continued support support for modernization of the passenger facility charge program. I think that's near and dear to all of the commercial service airports. That cap has not been raised in 20 years. And I would note that this position is consistent with that, at least the last time I checked with you, George, with that of DEN and with CAOA, and of course, both of the major national airport associations. Everybody agrees the PFC program could use some tweaks to keep it up to date, I think. Support and encouragement for continued refinement of the FAA's 2013 air carrier flight crew qualification rules to make sure we've got a good balance of safety and continued small community air service. I know right now their pilot shortage is maybe a little bit on pause, but I think all of the signs point to that maybe coming down the road again. And of course, that's been a particular challenge for a lot of the regional air carriers. And I know right after the 2013 flight rule changes, we saw a lot of the smaller commercial service airports in Colorado be challenged with air service simply because of the lack of pilots. So we want to make sure we're paying attention to what's happening with that. Support for legislative action to make sure remote air traffic control towers are eligible to be in the FAA's contract tower program once they are certified. Ongoing support for allowing safe access by seaplanes to state waters. Continuing opposition to any effort to support or separate air traffic control functions from FAA. Certainly the proposals to do so were not successful in 2018 with a new administration. This is a topic that could always come back. Support for maintaining a public airport and airway system that provides open, equal, and unrestricted access. And support for efforts, policy, and legislation that bolsters aviation workforce development and training. And then lastly, this one was sort of unique to our situation here at FNL with the remote tower, would be support for any federal legislative vehicle that would eliminate financial disincentives for retiring air traffic controllers from the FAA, allowing them to continue working as contract controllers beyond their FAA retirement without financial penalty. Senator Inhofe from Oklahoma introduced a bill in the last Congress to do just that. It didn't really go anywhere, even though there was broad bipartisan and bicameral support for that. But we do expect that to come back this year, and that will basically allow FAA controllers to go work for companies like Serco and RVA and allow them to be to work at contract facilities like our remote tower facility and the other contract towers in the state. We did move 2 items off from this year. That was the support for the Denver Metroplex effort. That's done and has been implemented. And we also removed FAA 100% FAA funding for FY21. That ship has sailed. We'll see what we can do for federal fiscal year 22, but does not look like there will be anything that will happen for FY21. So the 2 new members, things that we have added based on some input I received from board members. The first one we talked about already was support for allocation of $5.9 million to the division from the FY22 state general fund to allow us to move forward with 14 airport projects that, as you know, were all deferred by the CAB in August of 2020 as a result of our reduced revenues. So I've had conversations with the governor's office about that. I've had conversations with CAOA and CABA about that. That list is out there, it's been shared. And so we've included that in this year's resolution. And then the other new one is support for reform of the FAA's non-primary entitlement funding program. And this is a great conversation over beers and dinner. But there definitely could stand to be some improvement with the way the FAA administers the $150,000 annual entitlement for small commercial service airports. It's also unique in that within Colorado, a non-primary airport like Akron receives exactly the same federal entitlement that an airport like Centennial or Rocky Mountain Metro does. And I think that there's not really a recognition within the FAA that some general aviation airports are different than others, and that there could be some improvements to the program to account for that. So again, those are the 2 new things, and that's really about it. So, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you for any conversations about anything we missed or anything we need to change or add. But again, that's your proposed 2021 advocacy resolution.
Sorry, I apologize. There's an airplane right outside my window that just started up. So, okay. I open it to the board for any other ideas or suggestions or comments on the advocacy resolution. I really appreciate the coordination, Dave, with George over at DEN. And I think that's really a culmination of the last several years. So thank you, George, for keeping us, making sure that we're all on the same team.
Well, if I may, just to reiterate on that, I appreciate Dave's work even before I was part of the board. We would through this year as the push in DC for relief for airports got to a climax, we were able to get folks on the phone with our delegation and make the case. I think it was really effective, particularly in the spring in the run up to the CARES Act. So it's been great to work with airports around the state and really make that case and see the results come from that in a couple of different packages. So hopefully 2021 is the year where we start seeing a rebound where we don't need to go and ask for relief. But that was really critical, and Dave, you played such a big role in that, and really appreciate it.
Outstanding. Thank you. Any other? Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I would say along those lines, one of the things that I have historically done annually in late February, early March, the National Association of State Aviation Officials always has its federal legislative conference in Washington, D.C. at the end of February. Typically, we would tag on to that where the current president of CAOA and I, along with Bill Payne, would meet in person in DC with every one of our 9 delegation member staffers to brief them, one on the remote tower, to share with them what CAOA felt was important. And then we would also share this advocacy resolution with all of them so that our congressional delegation knew what was important to all of you. I'm 100% sure that's not going to happen in person at the end of February this year, but we'll be working again with Jason and Dave Ruppel to set those up virtually and then continue to do that with we've got a lot of new folks in DC this year. Obviously, we want to get them up to speed. So we'll continue to do that here in late February and early March. We'll just be doing it virtually with those staffers this year instead of out there in DC.
Yeah, outstanding. And I think it's a heck of a united front to go to Washington, happening for the last several years. So outstanding. With that, look for a motion to approve the 2021 Colorado Aeronautical Board Advocacy. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, hearing none, that is approved.
So Jason LeCone wanted to know where.
Okay. So let's look at, that's the last action item, I believe. So let's do the number 17. Caitlin, would you like to review the annual board member conflict of interest statements?
I would love to, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to let everybody know that annually at the January meeting, we fill out the conflict of interest statements that were a product of the 2009 performance audit done by the state. They usually include items such as if you are the director of an airport, that would be a potential conflict, knowing that you would abstain from any votes that had to do with that airport, or if you're on an advisory board or anything of that sort. But those were all sent out to all the board members this morning. So if you would sign those and send them back to me, we'll get them scanned in and put into your board member files. Are there any questions on the statement specifically?
All right. Hearing none. Thank you very much, Caitlin.
Thank you guys very much.
And let's look at item number 18, the proposed calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of years ago, we started a tradition of trying to meet with the Transportation Commission at their April meeting to do a lunch with them, just informal, so you all can get to know each other. There is often a lot of turnover on the TC, and of course, we've got new board members here. It's a great opportunity for the 2 respective boards to get to know one another. I am not at this point optimistic that that can happen in person in April, but I'll work with Shoshana Liu, our CDOT director, to see if we have an opportunity to do that remotely. That's typically involved me also providing them a presentation about what we do very briefly over lunch. and then just kind of a dialogue back and forth. So whether that happens or not, we will still plan on having our CAB meeting on April 21st, even if it does not include the Transportation Commission. And then the second one, I might look to you on this, Kenny. Right now, CAOA has their spring conference planned for June 9, 10, and 11 down in Telluride. We would typically hold our board meeting one of those days. We don't have that date picked out yet. But again, it would be during that time frame, regardless of whether CAOA moves forward with their conference or not. So Kenny, I might put you on the spot and see if you've got any insight into what that might look like.
No, I mean, I think, we're all crossing our fingers and everybody's holding their breath, and especially up here at 9,000 feet. But no, I think there's optimism, and we're going to proceed, that this is going to happen. This will be very much a networking, a social event that I think is very much in need in our business and in the state of Colorado. So a lot of excitement. We're sending out, probably initiating this week, rounding up some sponsorship from our airport partners, and get that going. And we really, we got the whole place to ourselves, really. The Peaks Resort is the largest hotel in Telluride, and they're giving us a phenomenal rate of $205 a night. Typically up here, it's more like about $400 to $500 a night. So wonderful discounted price. And we just really want to include, contrary to what we've done in the past, where airports, we're keeping everybody together on a Thursday evening event and dinner and some speakers, have you. So we're just proceeding like this is going to happen. Ken Lawson with the CAOA helped put together a contract, and that's been signed by the president, Mr. Ruppel, as well as Jason Lacone has been a big part of putting this together and carrying it forward. So really appreciate that. We're excited. We're excited to host Colorado here in Telluride and make it special. And I would also encourage you, for planning purposes, bring your family. There's so many things to do on either side. This is not we did that on purpose, where you get the super cheap rates and what have you. It's really between two festivals. The following weekend, I believe, is the Bluegrass Festival. So if you want to stick around the week before or the weekend before, you have that phenomenal rate for rooms and what have you. So there'll be some information from CAOA coming out real quick on way and links to make your reservations. So we're excited. That's all I have. So our next item would be number 19, other matters by the public and members. I don't know, do we have anybody that would like to say anything? Chick, would you like to talk about Business Magazine's annual 40 Under 40?
Yes, I noticed the latest issue of Airport Business Magazine included 2 individuals from Colorado in their under 40 listing of hotshots, and one of which was at DIA. That George, I'm sure, knows very well, and so it's a great opportunity to recognize those that shine in our industry, and so I would commend that as an opportunity. Of course, there is a drawback to that. You highlight them and they're recognized, and then all of a sudden everybody else in the country starts looking to recruit them to come and work for them. But it is an opportunity to really recognize some of the talent that we have in this state.
Yeah, that's excellent, and thanks for bringing that up. I thought you were going to talk about you were on that list.
Well, I did get my shot because I'm qualified to be old enough to do that.
Well, there you go. Well, good. Anyone else from the public have anything to say? Certainly, this is your opportunity. Hearing none, let's go ahead and adjourn for the day.
Hey, Kenneth, before we go, I was waiting for the public, but can I make a comment? I actually have a question for Dave, which may be of interest to the board. So
yes,
I'll keep this short, but on January 4th, Chris Swathwood, who is the CABA's chairman, sent a letter to Governor Polis that reminded them that, you know, we have 74 airports in the state, of which 14 are served by commercial, but the rest are served by general and business aviation. And in his letter, he made the offer that, you know, the general and business aviation community has volunteered to, in the past, to deliver food and Christmas gifts, as well as PPE. There's been 2 airlifts in 2020. And so the offer was to, if needed, that we could rally the general aviation community, business aviation community, to deliver vaccines when the supply is big enough. And so it was a well-written letter, and I think, again, reminded the governor of this great air transportation system that we have in Colorado. So my question, Dave, is, have you heard anything? I know that Kelly Sloan, we were doing the chat back and forth. He said that CABA's not heard anything from the governor. I guess my question for you, Dave, is have you, and is there an outreach from the CAB that would be of any value on this topic?
So thanks, Mark, for that. I appreciate that. I think I shared that letter with the board. If I did not, I'll make sure, I'll double check. Did you all get that letter? I thought I had shared it. If I didn't, I will, but it was a very well-written letter. You're right. Mark, I have not heard back from the governor's office yet, but as soon as we're done with our board meeting, we have our weekly CDOT leadership team meeting. I will ask. That process through CDOT was processed through our state emergency operations coordinator, is how those requests filter up to the governor's office, and they are aware of that as well. But again, CABA was also instrumental in helping George and Den get rid of a lot of masks that FEMA shipped them. They use CABA to get rid of, to get those out and around the state. So I'll follow up, Mark, and see, but I have not heard anything about that yet. I have seen that in some states that the Civil Air Patrol is playing a big role in that. And I don't know if they're looking to only use government-related operations like that to distribute the vaccine rather than private aircraft, but I'll see what I can learn about the status of that from the governor's office.
Well, it was a great idea that Chris put forth.
Yep.
So if we can support that, you know, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
yep,
and
I know I did through the. Yep, go ahead.
No, I think that's a great point. I think that I trust that, Dave, you're going to keep your finger on the pulse as far as if you hear anything. One thing I will say too is that I would imagine that the governor will be heavily utilizing the Colorado National Guard as well. They have for testing and what have you. So, and they're very active in that endeavor. So that's great, Dave. Thank you. Any other board members like to say anything before we adjourn?
I'd like to just add to what Dave was talking about. We have a number of charter operators that we help manage that have smaller aircraft like PC-12s and 441s, things along that line that are easy to get in and out of the mountain airports and the smaller GA airports. And so if that is an asset that could be employed to help distribute vaccines, certainly would be very easy to activate them.
Yeah, I agree, Chick. And I think that's, you know, when you're going through natural disasters or pandemics, really this is where aviation shines. It's a pleasure to serve with all of you on the board, and I look forward to a good year, I hope, in 2021. So with that, I think we'll call it adjourned.